If the timing of your life has felt unusually charged lately, do not dismiss that feeling as your imagination, because what unfolds today marks far more than another familiar stop in the annual astrological cycle. On the surface, the calendar simply tells us that on July 22nd, the Sun enters Leo. And for many people, that sounds routine. Another Leo season, arriving with the usual conversations about confidence, creativity, and self-expression before life continues as always. Yet this year carries an entirely different weight, and the deeper you look beneath the obvious, the more impossible it becomes to ignore how meaningful this transition truly is. I have been watching the larger pattern take shape for months, and what stands out is not just the arrival of the Sun into its own sign, but the remarkable conditions already waiting for it. This is why I believe this shift deserves far more attention than it has received, because the true story is hidden beneath the surface, quietly preparing for a moment that now begins to unfold. Long before today arrived, Jupiter, the planet associated with growth, opportunity, abundance, and expansion, entered Leo on June 29th. It did not announce itself with dramatic external events. Instead, it settled into place almost silently, laying the emotional and energetic groundwork for what was still to come. Now the Sun steps into the exact same sign, the place astrology considers its natural home, and that meeting transforms quiet potential into active momentum. Something that has been building behind the scenes finally finds its spark, and what once existed only as possibility suddenly gains the power to move. If you have recently carried an unexplainable feeling that something significant has been approaching, even if you could not identify exactly what, there is a reason for that sensation. Sometimes your intuition recognizes a shift before your logical mind has enough evidence to explain it. You notice subtle restlessness, unexpected excitement, or a growing awareness that your current chapter no longer feels permanent. Those emotional signals are often the earliest whispers that change has already begun long before it becomes visible in your external world. We are going to explore exactly why this feeling has become so widespread. But before we move deeper into today's alignment, there is something equally important waiting just ahead. On July 29th, another astrological event arrives, one that I believe may become the defining energetic moment of the entire summer. Its influence reaches far beyond a single day, and the opportunity connected to it may not present itself again for well over a decade. We will come back to that in a moment, because understanding today's energy first is essential if you want to recognize the importance of what follows. This is not merely the beginning of another Leo season, it is the opening movement of something much larger. To understand why, you have to understand what it means when the Sun enters Leo. In astrology, the Sun is not simply passing through unfamiliar territory. It is returning to the Zodiac sign, where its qualities express themselves with the greatest strength and clarity. Imagine the difference between living cautiously inside someone else's home and finally unlocking the front door to your own. The environment immediately feels natural. Your movements become effortless. You stop adjusting yourself to fit someone else's space because you are finally standing where your own energy belongs. That is how astrologers describe the Sun's relationship with Leo. Here, the qualities connected to vitality, courage, creative expression, leadership, confidence, and personal identity are allowed to shine without unnecessary restraint or compromise. Even by itself, that would make today's transition highly significant. Yet what transforms this year into something extraordinary is Jupiter's presence already waiting in Leo. Jupiter has a remarkable way of enlarging whatever it touches. It increases momentum, amplifies existing energy, and expands the possibilities surrounding every circumstance it encounters. As the Sun enters Leo today and joins Jupiter in this powerful environment, it feels less like the beginning of something small and more like the instant when stored potential finally finds ignition. The energy that has quietly accumulated since late June now has a source capable of activating it. The result is an extraordinary surge of creative inspiration, stronger personal presence, increased visibility, and opportunities that may seem to appear from several different directions, almost simultaneously. Personally, I have sensed this atmosphere intensifying week after week. There has been an unusual feeling in the background, similar to the charged stillness that settles over the air before a powerful storm arrives. Everything appears calm on the outside, yet beneath the surface you can almost feel invisible pressure gathering. Many of you have likely experienced that same emotional landscape. Perhaps you have found yourself unable to settle completely into your normal routines. Perhaps your thoughts keep returning to a possibility you cannot stop imagining. Perhaps there is a quiet certainty growing inside you that something important is approaching, even though you cannot yet describe exactly what it is. If those experiences sound familiar, they may be reflecting the larger astrological pattern now reaching its turning point. This leads us to an idea many astrologers have begun describing as the beginning of a golden era, and I think that phrase deserves careful explanation because it represents far more than an attractive headline. When the Sun and Jupiter unite within a sign where both energies are able to express themselves so naturally, the atmosphere becomes unusually supportive of meaningful growth. Progress that once seemed painfully slow can suddenly accelerate. Paths that appeared permanently blocked begin revealing unexpected openings. Dreams that once felt unrealistic may finally discover the circumstances needed to become achievable. Individuals who have spent months or even years feeling trapped inside repeating patterns may suddenly experience momentum that seems difficult to explain through logic alone. Yet there is one misunderstanding I want to prevent before it takes hold. This alignment is not an invitation to wait passively for miracles. It does not suggest that life rewards inaction simply because favorable astrology exists. Instead, imagine the universe clearing fallen trees from a road that has been blocked for a very long time. The path becomes available again, but someone still has to choose to begin the journey. That is how this energy functions. It responds to movement. It strengthens authenticity. It amplifies courage. It supports those willing to step toward the life they have quietly imagined, instead of remaining inside familiar limitations. So if there has been an idea living inside your mind, a creative project waiting for your attention, an important conversation you continue postponing, or a life-changing decision that fear has convinced you to delay, pay close attention to what begins unfolding now, because the next part of this story may reveal exactly why those inner nudges have become impossible to ignore. There are moments in astrology when the universe seems to whisper, and there are moments when it feels as though it is speaking with unmistakable clarity. I truly believe the weeks immediately ahead belong to the second category. If you've been waiting for confirmation before making a meaningful decision, beginning a long-delayed project, or stepping toward a version of your life that has existed only in your imagination, this period carries the unmistakable feeling of permission. The atmosphere surrounding you is no longer asking you to remain in preparation. Instead, it is encouraging movement. While everyone will experience some influence from the Sun entering Leo alongside Jupiter already positioned there, 3 zodiac signs stand directly where this energy is concentrated most intensely. For these individuals, the coming weeks have the potential to become a defining chapter that they will remember for years. If they recognize what is available and respond with intention rather than hesitation, they may eventually look back on this period as the moment everything began changing in ways they could never have predicted. Let us begin with Leo, because the significance here is impossible to overlook. If your sun, moon, or rising sign is Leo, you are standing inside an astrological pattern that appears only about once every 12 years. Your ruling planet, the Sun, has now entered your own sign, while Jupiter, the planet associated with abundance, expansion, and opportunity, is already waiting there. This is not a quiet influence operating behind the scenes. It is an unmistakable invitation to become visible. Imagine standing beneath a light so powerful that every hidden gift, every overlooked talent, and every quality you've spent years minimizing suddenly becomes impossible for the world to ignore. That is the atmosphere surrounding you now. In practical terms, this can manifest through greater professional recognition, meaningful breakthroughs in creative pursuits, financial openings, or circumstances that place your abilities before people capable of changing your future. As I have watched this larger pattern develop over recent months, what continues to amaze me is the remarkable concentration of supportive alignments gathering around Leo. Rarely do so many encouraging influences converge with this level of intensity. Yet there is one truth that feels more important than every opportunity combined. None of these possibilities are designed for a version of yourself created to satisfy other people's expectations. They belong only to the person you truly are beneath every mask you have learned to wear. Jupiter is known for extraordinary generosity, but its gifts are inseparable from authenticity. If you attempt to receive this abundance while pretending to be someone more acceptable, more polished, or more comfortable for everyone else, you create a barrier between yourself and the very blessings trying to reach you. The opportunities emerging now are aligned with your genuine identity, not with an image carefully edited to earn approval. If you have spent years lowering your voice, hiding your brilliance, or reducing your presence because you worried about making others uncomfortable, consider this your unmistakable invitation to stop. Every time you shrink yourself, you risk stepping outside the frequency these opportunities were meant to meet. The doors opening now recognize honesty before perfection. They respond to courage before performance. I understand how vulnerable that feels, because allowing yourself to be fully seen without hiding behind modesty or self-protection demands tremendous inner strength. Yet perhaps that has always been the lesson waiting for you. This chapter is no longer preparation for the future, it is the future arriving. If you choose to embrace it without apology, you may discover that the life you imagined was never asking you to become someone different. It was simply waiting for you to become more completely yourself. For Aries, the energy unfolds through an entirely different but equally exciting pathway. As the Sun joins Jupiter in Leo, both bodies illuminate your fifth house, the area of life connected with creativity, romance, self-expression, and the simple ability to experience genuine joy without guilt or hesitation. Because Leo forms a natural trine with Aries, this influence moves toward you with remarkable ease. Instead of encountering resistance, you may notice that inspiration flows naturally, almost as though invisible obstacles have quietly disappeared. It resembles plugging directly into a source of energy that restores your confidence, while simultaneously accelerating your momentum. There is a very specific reason this matters. Somewhere in your life, there is likely an idea, a creative vision, or an ambitious project that you have continued postponing. Perhaps you convinced yourself it still needed refinement. Perhaps you questioned whether your abilities were sufficient. Perhaps you believe the circumstances were not yet favorable enough to begin. Yet this alignment suggests something different. The conditions you have been waiting for may already be here. I genuinely believe this represents one of those uncommon windows when your instinctive courage receives unusually strong support from the larger astrological environment. The very opportunity you have delayed could become the one most deserving of immediate action. Financially, this period also deserves careful attention. It is not encouraging reckless decisions or impulsive gambling. Instead, it increases the potential rewards connected with thoughtful risks that have been carefully considered. If you have been evaluating an investment, developing a business concept, or preparing to begin a new professional venture, notice which possibilities continue returning to your mind. Sometimes, excitement itself becomes valuable information. When an idea refuses to leave your attention because it continues filling you with both anticipation and nervous energy, That emotional combination may deserve closer examination during this transit. Beyond career and finances, another noticeable quality begins surrounding Aries during this time. Your natural charisma seems amplified. Social interactions become more engaging. Romantic possibilities may become easier to attract. Creative confidence becomes more visible to others. You may find yourself receiving attention in places where previously you blended into the background. Allow that visibility instead of resisting it. There is no need to hide while this current supports your natural strengths. At the same time, there is one important challenge worth recognizing honestly. Aries has always possessed extraordinary power when it comes to beginnings. You excel at taking the first courageous step, generating bold ideas, and initiating momentum before anyone else has gathered the confidence to move. Yet the opportunity Jupiter offers in Leo extends beyond exciting starts. It points towards something capable of lasting, growing, and evolving into lasting success. The next part of this journey depends not only on your willingness to begin, but on your commitment to remain present long enough to transform early inspiration into something enduring. The first surge of excitement will feel almost unstoppable, but I want to prepare you for something that often separates temporary inspiration from lasting transformation. Every wave eventually settles, every burst of motivation naturally softens, and when that moment arrives, do not mistake the quieter energy for a sign that you should walk away. That is precisely where the greatest rewards begin to reveal themselves. The beginning captures your attention, but persistence creates your future. If you remain committed after the initial thrill fades, you give this extraordinary alignment the opportunity to produce something meaningful instead of something merely exciting. Now let us turn our attention to Sagittarius, because the astrological picture unfolding here carries a unique significance that deserves careful attention. There is something especially fascinating about this connection, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the very planet already positioned in Leo, and now energized even further by the arrival of the Sun. Whenever your ruling planet operates from a place of strength, its influence echoes directly through your own life. The relationship is immediate and unmistakable. As Jupiter flourishes, so does the part of you connected to growth, optimism, possibility, and expansion. This particular alignment activates your ninth house, an area of the chart that already resonates naturally with Sagittarius energy. It governs higher education, philosophy, long-distance travel, publishing, teaching, and the continual widening of your understanding of both the world and yourself. What makes this moment so remarkable is that these themes are not simply activated, they are magnified twice over. The subjects that have always inspired your spirit now receive an extraordinary current of support, creating circumstances where your greatest passions can evolve into tangible opportunities. In everyday life, this influence may arrive through experiences that extend beyond familiar boundaries, both literally and symbolically. You may discover opportunities involving international partnerships, collaborations across cultures, publishing possibilities, educational roles, or mentorship experiences that allow your voice to reach audiences far larger than you previously imagined. If there has been a manuscript waiting to be finished, a course waiting to be shared, a podcast waiting to begin, or an idea you have hoped to introduce to people far beyond your current circle, this alignment suggests that the cosmic atmosphere is unusually favorable for exactly those kinds of endeavors. The support surrounding these ambitions feels stronger now than it has in quite some time. Yet there is another dimension that captures my attention even more. The financial expansion available to Sagittarius during this period appears closely connected to the willingness to step outside familiar environments. The next meaningful opportunity is unlikely to arrive through the same conversations, the same contacts, or the same routines you have relied upon before. Instead, it may emerge from someone you have not yet met, a place you have not yet visited, or a discussion you have not yet allowed yourself to enter. Jupiter has always symbolized expansion, and its message during this transit is remarkably consistent. Broaden your perspective. Stretch beyond your comfort zone. Allow your world to become larger than the version you have grown accustomed to inhabiting. However, every gift carries its own lesson, and for Sagittarius, that lesson centers around grounding your extraordinary vision. Your ability to see distant possibilities is one of your greatest strengths, yet it sometimes encourages you to leap toward the destination before constructing the path that will actually carry you there. This remarkable period offers enormous potential, but dreams alone cannot transform possibility into reality. They require structure. Continue imagining boldly, absolutely, but also commit yourself to the practical foundation that supports lasting success. Build the schedule. Organize the strategy. Complete the ordinary tasks that rarely receive applause. Those seemingly unremarkable steps become the bridge connecting your inspiring vision with the tangible future you hope to create. That is where this expansive energy becomes something you can actually hold in your hands, instead of simply imagining in your mind. Yet before anyone becomes convinced that the coming days consist only of effortless blessings, there is another side of this astrological landscape that deserves equal attention. I have spoken extensively about opportunity, momentum, and expansion, because those qualities are genuinely present. But presenting only that half of the story would leave you unprepared for the emotional depth approaching alongside it. The astrology of the next week contains tremendous promise, but it also asks for honesty, courage, and inner work. Less than 24 hours after the Sun enters Leo, it forms a challenging square with Chiron in Taurus. Chiron represents the wounded healer, the place within us where pain eventually becomes wisdom. Notice the timing carefully. Just as confidence begins to awaken and the radiant strength of the Sun starts flowing more freely, that growing light immediately encounters one of your most sensitive emotional wounds. Questions surrounding self-worth, personal value, and whether you truly deserve the opportunities arriving before you may suddenly become impossible to ignore. I want to speak openly about how this may feel, because recognizing the experience makes it far easier to move through. You could receive remarkable news, an exciting invitation, or an unexpected opportunity, only to discover that your first internal response is hesitation rather than celebration. Thoughts like, "I am not prepared for this," or "Why would anyone choose me?" may surface with surprising intensity. If that happens, understand what you are actually witnessing. This is not evidence that you are incapable. It is not proof that the opportunity belongs to someone else. Instead, this alignment exposes the unresolved part of you that still questions your own value. I believe the universe is not attempting to defeat you through this experience. It is inviting you to heal the beliefs that have quietly limited you for far too long. Stepping into a period of extraordinary abundance, while secretly believing you are undeserving, creates a contradiction that eventually collapses under its own weight. Before greater blessings can fully take root, the inner wound that rejects them must first be acknowledged and transformed. Then another powerful turning point arrives on July 27th, and among every alignment unfolding this month, this is the one that commands my deepest attention. On that day, the Sun opposes Pluto in Aquarius, creating what I consider the most psychologically intense astrological configuration of the entire month. An opposition between the Sun and Pluto forces an honest encounter with power in all its forms. It asks you to examine your relationship with your own authority, your ambitions, your influence, and the ways other people attempt to shape or control your choices. Situations may arise where your personal goals conflict directly with the expectations of groups around you. Hidden truths that have remained buried may suddenly emerge into plain sight. Pluto rarely works quietly. It uncovers what has been concealed, exposing realities that can no longer remain hidden beneath appearances. Some of those revelations may feel uncomfortable. You could encounter struggles involving authority figures, tension within important relationships, or powerful emotions that rise unexpectedly after remaining suppressed for a very long time. Yet even here, beneath the discomfort, there is profound purpose. This opposition is not designed to break your spirit. Its deeper intention is refinement. It strips away false identities, dissolves performances maintained only for approval, and burns through every version of yourself built upon external validation instead of inner truth. What remains after that process is not weakness, but authenticity. What survives is something far more stable than image or reputation. It is the part of you capable of carrying the extraordinary opportunities this golden era is placing within reach. Because only what is genuine possesses the strength to sustain everything this remarkable chapter is preparing to offer. Do not underestimate what is waiting on July 29th, because after studying how these planetary movements fit together, I became convinced that this date represents the point where everything that has been quietly developing reaches its defining moment. Until now, we have been following a series of powerful alignments, each one preparing the ground for something larger, but this is where the entire sequence reaches its peak. Within only a few hours, two extraordinary astrological events unfold almost back to back, creating an atmosphere unlike anything else this year has offered. The first begins when the Sun forms an exact conjunction with Jupiter in Leo, creating what traditional astrology calls a cazimi. A cazimi occurs when a planet moves so close to the Sun that it is considered to be resting within the very heart of solar power itself. Throughout astrological tradition, this has long been viewed as one of the most favorable conditions a planet can experience. When that planet happens to be Jupiter, the symbol of abundance, expansion, opportunity, and fortune, joining the Sun inside Leo, the sign where both bodies express themselves with exceptional strength, the result becomes extraordinarily significant. I genuinely believe this alignment marks the single most powerful opportunity for growth, recognition, breakthrough, and meaningful expansion during all of 2026. That conclusion is not based on exaggeration or optimism alone. It comes directly from the extraordinary nature of the astrology itself. Everything that has been quietly building beneath the surface since late June reaches a moment of unmistakable clarity here. Seeds planted through consistent effort begin revealing visible results. The courage you demonstrated when no outcome was guaranteed finally begins producing tangible rewards. If you have chosen authenticity over performance, action over hesitation, and commitment over comfort, this day has the potential to reflect those choices back to you in remarkable ways. Career opportunities may suddenly accelerate. Creative work that once struggled to gain attention may receive long-awaited recognition. Financial possibilities may expand beyond previous expectations. Individuals capable of influencing your future may finally notice what you have been building. What stands out most about this alignment is that it favors those willing to step forward despite uncertainty. It responds to courage expressed through action rather than confidence that waits until fear disappears. Yet the story of July 29th does not end there. Because only about 2 hours after the Sun and Jupiter unite in their remarkable cazimi, another equally powerful event arrives. A full moon rises in Aquarius while forming an exact conjunction with Pluto, and this changes the emotional landscape dramatically. The radiant confidence generated by the Sun and Jupiter now meets the penetrating psychological force of Pluto expressed through the illuminating power of the full moon. Together, they create an extraordinary contrast between personal achievement and collective purpose. While the Sun and Jupiter highlight your individual gifts, the Aquarius full moon directs your attention toward your communities, your friendships, your professional networks, and every group or collective environment that shapes your life. It asks a profound question. How does your personal brilliance contribute to something greater than your own success? This full moon has an extraordinary ability to expose truths that have remained hidden beneath the surface. Dynamics within important relationships may suddenly become impossible to ignore. You may recognize which connections genuinely support your evolution and which have quietly limited your growth. Patterns inside organizations, friendships, or communities may reveal themselves with startling clarity. Because Pluto participates so directly in this alignment, the revelations may arrive with unusual intensity. Some relationships, affiliations, identities, or roles that once felt permanent may suddenly reveal that they no longer belong in the future you are creating. I understand that possibility may sound unsettling, yet I want you to view it through a different perspective. Transformation often feels uncomfortable precisely because it removes what has become familiar. But what disappears now is not leaving to punish you. It is leaving because it cannot continue alongside the person you are becoming. The structures that dissolve are making space for something more aligned with your authentic direction. The people, opportunities, and foundations that remain after this process will possess a strength capable of supporting the next chapter of your life in ways the old structures never could. When I step back and look at everything we've explored together, one message continues standing above all the rest. What begins today extends far beyond another seasonal transition. I truly believe we are witnessing the opening of a chapter that many people will eventually recognize as the point where their entire direction changed. Yet there is one truth I cannot emphasize strongly enough. This remarkable period is not something that simply happens while you watch from the sidelines. A golden era is not handed to you without participation. It becomes real only when you choose to enter it deliberately. You claim it through your willingness to act, through your commitment to honesty, and through your courage to continue moving, even while carrying the parts of yourself that still need healing. Consider everything the coming week asks of you. The Sun Square Chiron invites you to confront the wounds that continue shaping your sense of worth. The opposition between the Sun and Pluto challenges you to release false identities and transform your relationship with power. Then, the Sun. Jupiter Casimir asks you to step boldly toward expansion without allowing fear to dictate your decisions. That is an extraordinary amount of growth compressed into a single week, and it is perfectly understandable if part of you feels both inspired and overwhelmed at the same time. In fact, I would suggest that those conflicting emotions may actually confirm you are standing exactly where you need to be. The individuals who benefit most from this remarkable sequence are rarely the ones who believe they have every answer. They are the people willing to admit where they feel uncertain, courageous enough to face uncomfortable truths, and determined enough to continue walking forward anyway. If you recognize yourself in that description, then perhaps this entire series of alignments has been preparing you more than you realized. There is another important shift supporting this process as well. Mercury stations direct on July 23rd, bringing an end to the confusion, communication difficulties, and mental uncertainty that have characterized the recent retrograde period. Conversations begin flowing more naturally. Decisions become easier to trust. Plans that previously felt delayed or tangled begin moving again. It almost feels as though the universe gradually removes every reason to remain frozen. As the Sun settles into Leo, the path becomes clearer, your energy begins returning, and what remains is a single decision that only you can make. Will you continue standing where you have always been, or will you move toward what has been calling your attention for weeks? During the days immediately ahead, stay fully present with everything unfolding around you. Notice what fills you with excitement, because genuine enthusiasm often points toward your next opportunity. Notice what frightens you, because fear sometimes guards the doorway leading toward your greatest growth. Pay attention when unexpected opportunities appear, and pay equal attention when certain situations begin naturally falling away. I do not believe these developments are occurring without purpose. Every conversation, Every ending, every opening, every emotional realization may belong to a much larger pattern carrying you toward the next version of your life. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. If these insights spoke to something inside you and you would like to continue exploring astrology together, I would truly appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel. Your encouragement makes it possible to continue creating conversations like this. I would also love to hear your experience in the comments. Tell me which of the 3 zodiac signs we discussed reflects your chart, and share what you have been noticing in your own life recently. Have you already begun feeling these shifts? Reading your stories and connecting with this community remains one of the most meaningful parts of creating these videos. Until we meet again, take care of yourself during this extraordinary week, because I genuinely believe a remarkable new chapter is beginning, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.